Welcome back, everyone, to the Excellent Decisions podcast, and in particular to this series of episodes that we're doing called the Wisdom Series, which is designed to share with as many people as possible the blessing that I've had over the past 20 plus years to be able to work with and learn from some of the most brilliant people on the planet, which I find is helping me a lot in these crazy times that we're experiencing. And again, my intention is to, in addition to continuing to help people make excellent decisions based on vision and values and value rather than stress and pressure, but in this particular time to really cope with all the stress and pressure that's out there. So today, my guest is a good friend and definitely one of my mentors and teachers, Paul Scheele. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Paul. Paul is an expert in learning. So when you're an expert in learning, your bio gets really long because he practices what he preaches and he continues to learn even though he already knows so much. I'm going to give you some highlights from his bio. He is the co-founder of Learning Strategies. He guides people to achieve extraordinary results in relationships, work, money, and health. Paul is an expert on learning how to tap into the other 90% of your mind's capacity. He believes everyone has an inner genius just waiting to be awakened. He shows us how to access our full potential using powerful learning strategies. His unique combination of expertise includes degrees in biology, learning and human development, and leadership and change, plus a rich background in neuro-linguistic programming, accelerated learning, pre-conscious processing, and universal energy. I could go on and on, but I'm gonna stop. And I do want to add, I will literally never forget the first time I met you because it was at the second ever Transformational Leadership Council meeting at John Gray's Ranch in Mendocino, California. And that's a whole separate story in and of itself. But I literally remember meeting you in the chaos, and I was dealing with all the logistics and everything of the meeting. But I remember meeting you and getting immediately, just energetically getting like, I don't know who this guy is, but when he's talking, I want to listen. Like, I want to hear what he has to say. So that first impression turned out to be really accurate. I remain in that place up until this moment right now. I'm going to shut up and we're going to hear from Paul Scheele. How are you, Paul?
Just great, Robert. Thanks so much for the invitation. It's wonderful to be included in the circle of brilliant people that you mentioned. So
yeah, it was fun coming up with a short list of people, and it was a good reminder for me of just how much wisdom I really do have access from all of you over the years. That really has been helpful to me in this crazy time. So speaking of this crazy time, like, give us your perspective on what you see going on out there and what's happening in the world right now.
Well, it's an important recognition that there are 8 billion people living in your backyard. And whatever's going on with those 8 billion in your backyard affects you and how you're living. Now, we didn't necessarily really get that idea when we had earthquakes and when we had 9/11 and when we had the fires in Australia and floods throughout the world, and just keep on naming hurricane after disaster after. This one, I think, really has everybody's attention. It's a coronavirus that everybody has been familiar with for a number of years. And this is a novel one. And the response now is absolutely coming into our backyard. So the idea that Buckminster Fuller talked about years ago, he referred to Spaceship Earth. Hey, we're all on the spaceship together. We're all going through the same thing. It's time that we figure out how to correct some of the problems that we have unintentionally leashed upon ourselves. And certainly we all need to cope with what's emerging on a daily basis, and we can talk about some very effective strategies for that. But it's an important part. It's an important time in human history because an unsustainable trajectory has now become really clear, and some of the really positive effects that I have noticed in the thinking of many people I've been communicating with internationally is that this has been a wake-up call that has been heeded by many, and the opportunity for us to really come together collectively has never been so ripe in human history before. And this is great. You and I, Robert, we signed on to be here at this moment. And everybody listening, you are here at this moment in a great turning of human history. This is the great turning that has been predicted for quite a while, and certainly the Transformational Leadership Council that you referred to earlier has really recognized we signed on to be here at this moment in human history. So let's make the most of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. And I think your assessment of, there's been other kind of catastrophic events. If we look back just over the last several years, where I live in California, the fires, like you said, hurricanes, earthquakes, the whole thing. But this is the one that really doesn't have any boundaries, and it isn't localized. And on both extremes, I see the good things that I saw happen with the fires here, where people want to get out and help, and they want to contribute, and they want to support their neighbors and fellow community members. That's all happening. But the catastrophic side of it too, just to look at the sheer scope of it, and that it really is happening across spaceship Earth is pretty incredible. So we talked about the fact that you're an expert in learning specifically, and a practicer of learning yourself. How do you see learning? Because it seems like we all have an opportunity, and it seems like it's very important for us to be learning. But as an expert in learning, how do you see learning fitting into this whole situation and circumstance that we're faced with?
Well, anytime there's an emergency, if you've been trained in wilderness survival or anything else, the number one rule is stay calm. Because what happens when you're calm is you open up your mind to be able to see what kind of choices are available to you. So let's take for a moment just the model of the human brain. When we're under extreme duress, extreme stress, what happens is the brain downregulates into its most primitive function. It's called freeze. It's the reptilian brain that goes into a freeze response. Just above that is the mammalian brain, or the limbic system, and that part is about emotional safety. And when it's under duress, it will move into fight or flight. So think of a cat, a mammalian, right, with claws out. And when people are under stress, and we saw that when people started panicking, if they did go out into the stores, they went out and bought a lot of toilet paper because they thought, well, out of the scarcity, this is going to be a problem. Well, we're not going to be operating out of our best. If we're in the freeze response or the fight or flight response. So what we need to do is recognize that the oldest part of the brain, the reptilian, needs a sense of safety. So we have to come into the present moment and say, right now, not 5 minutes from now, but right now, are you okay? And if you're listening right now, you are okay. You're all right now. So just stay calm for a moment. That upregulates you into the part of the brain for calm. And when you calm down, essentially what we do is we relax our foreheads. Relax your shoulders will give you a sense of safety. Relaxing your forehead and getting a slight hint of a smile on your face will help you understand that you're calm. And when you're safe and calm, you move into that place of connection. You're connected. You're hearing our voices. We're going to get through this together. We're all in this together. We're all at the same point in human history. Nobody's escaping from the impact that this is going to have on society. So we're all in this together. Let's keep our level heads and let's move together. So it's a sense of connection. So we got safety, we got calm, and we got connection. Now, once we have those, we move into the neocortex, a new part of the brain, which is the thinking. It's the problem-solving part of the brain. And that lets us know we have efficacy, we have agency, we have a choice. We can make one small next step in the direction of where we have to go. And when we realize that, we can then have a sense of hope, which is actually something that's located in the prefrontal cortex of the brain. And when we upregulate into that prefrontal cortex, we can see the big picture. We can see the consequence of our actions, our historic preparedness or lack of preparedness, the unintended consequences of our behaviors, and keep the vision of hope of where we're going, what we're trying to achieve. And so we're going to get ourselves out of this. This too shall pass. And as we keep in that upregulated brain, learning is really possible. So I like to think about it as, the fear that's in our gut, the fear that's gripping our chest, the fear that's in our head. And if we can keep an open mind, an open heart, and an open will, we have an open connection to a vast intelligence that can help us solve the problems that we're facing.
Awesome. Yeah, and I want to dive into, I know you have a lot of great ideas and insights about how to take each one of those steps. I want to do that, but I also I want to just shine a light on a couple of things that you said. One, getting to that place of connected. I see so many people struggling with that now and feeling alone. Would you agree? Like people, here we are, we're in this situation, and you said it really beautifully. We're all in this together. But yet I keep coming across people who feel like they're alone. And is that just because they're in that stage of fear and scarcity? That's like a natural response to feel like I'm alone in this?
Yes, if you see someone, if you go to an emergency scene where somebody has just been in a terrible accident, right? They can freak out and they can be screaming for help, even though there's somebody right next to them. They've literally shut down their perceptual abilities to take in outside information. And so, what do we have to do? We have to get them to take a few deep breaths. We got to get them, come back to your body, and reassurance is so important. And that's why one of the key recommendations is to reach out to your support network. I don't know if your email inbox has been lighting up like many people's, but there's a lot of people reaching out with a lot of resources available. At Learning Strategies every day, we've been doing a live stream of Qigong exercise. So we're all in our remote locations, but we're all together doing Qigong. And with 500 people simultaneously logged in and doing that, there is an amazing sense of connection. Mm-hmm. And not just connection, but also collaboration. Our neighborhood, for example, we have a homeowners association that we created, and we did it years ago to help manage things that happen in the neighborhood. But as a group, people are on there saying, hey, I've got resources. If you need anything, contact me. And that's when we see people at their best. You talked about it at the fires of California, but we see it in hurricane situations as well. Human beings are at their best. And somebody also said the number one survival tool, the most important thing that you need to survive a catastrophic situation is not a gun. It's actually the ability to communicate and create community. And so if you have down-regulated and detached, reach out into the community that you do have. What I've been doing for myself, Robert's been pretty interesting. In my meditation each morning, I write down whoever's name shows up in my mind. And yesterday I wrote down 2 names that I didn't call. So the idea of me writing it down is that I would then reach out and either text or call or something during the day. I didn't call yesterday, got kind of busy. This morning, I received the call from those 2 people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you have to understand, also in my doctoral research, it showed one of the most positive sense of connection is called transpersonal. It's beyond just you and I talking. there is a transpersonal connection that we can tap into. I did a program years ago, a home study course called Meditate with the Himalayan Masters. And Swami Veda is talking about when you sit to meditate, you are at that moment connected to every other meditator on the planet who is at that moment meditating. And the Global Coherence Project, as you know about with the Heart Math Institute, same thing. Our cumulative consciousness can have a massive impact in a positive way if we would choose to drop in and connect with it.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important. The other thing that you touched on in that pathway that you talked about of going from, this is my words, not yours, but that place of fear and panic that so many people seem to be invited into these days, a feeling of not being safe, and going through that pathway of, first of all, calming down. And it's funny because people ask me, what have I been doing? You know, my work has gone away. I said, well, mostly my job the last 2 weeks has been getting people to calm down. So thank you for validating that I've been helping in some way, because it feels so needed, just helping people calm down before we decide what we're going to do. Calm down. And then getting to that place of connection. But you also talked about then our creativity opens up, right? Which is, I think, so true, and so much in the realm of this concept of excellent decisions. But you also talked about just taking small steps, which I feel like was something so big happening, is another thing people are forgetting, like the importance of just taking small steps, right? Like, we don't have to figure this whole thing out today, but what's something I can do to move in the direction I want to go?
Very important. And as you know, our colleague Mark McCurgo wrote the book Solutions Focus, and brief therapy and solutions focus, very similar. On a line from past to the future, you know, there you are in this now moment here. And let's say on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 is the ideal horizon we want to get to. You might be at a 3 or a 4. We don't want to think about, well, how do I get to steps 8, 9, and 10? We want to think about, how do I move from a 4 to a 4.5, or 4
right.
to a 4.25? And when we open up our mind to think in terms of small steps, is helpful. And the other important question that you ask yourself is, if someone says, well, on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, I'm at a 2. And instead of saying, well, why so low, which would give all the reasons and excuses of limitations,
Right
and
back into fear and the scarcity and all that,
right.
yeah.
So what you say is, oh, you're already at a 2, why so high and not lower? And of course, at that moment, the mind is sorting for resources. Like, what do I have in place? Well, I do have a couple of beans up, cans of beans in the closet.
I do have 20 rolls of toilet paper. I don't need more.
That's right. So all of that is very helpful. And tiny next steps, you know, really small next steps and tiny indicators of success are also helpful. You see this idea of efficacy, this idea that I can do some things. I might not be able to do what I was able to do a couple of weeks ago, but what can I do right now? And at that point, you then regain that sense of agency, which then allows you to respond and adapt. You see, what's really gone right now is the ability to predict and control. That's gone. I mean, it's just like wiped from the opportunity, right? That's
and
over.
for some of us who like to control things, that's
right.
tough.
So what do we have? We have the ability to sense and respond. So that transition from predict and control to sense and respond is absolutely critical. If you move into sensing, right now I'm okay, I'm calm, I have agency, I can do something right now. What is the next small step I can take? You see, all of that, sense, respond, sense, respond. And these are the ways in which we're going to get these small next steps to happen.
Yeah, awesome. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, and you know, anyone who's listening to you now in the course of however long we've been going, I do have a timer because I know you and I could go on and on and on. But you have that really, you know, the deep wisdom, and you've really done your homework and all that. And yet what I love about your work is it also gets boiled down to practical steps. Like, again, the small steps, like what can we do? And you talked about meditation. You talked about how the folks in your office are doing Qigong, and it's on my calendar every day, but I haven't been able to do it yet because it's always been in conflict with something else that I already had on my calendar. But it's literally, I'm making a conscious effort to keep my inbox cleared. And that's one of like the 6 messages that stays there because I really want to join you guys one of these days. But what are some other suggestions that you have for people about specific things that we can do to keep ourselves in that, you know, that connected and open-minded and creative kind of place where we can be taking, you know, next steps and moving in the direction and not falling into that kind of panic state that seems to be a constant invitation these days? What are some specific steps people can take that you think will help?
Okay, so if you just think about interacting with your brain, and if we're down regulated into fight, flight, or freeze, we have to up regulate. And so there's going to be 3 simple steps that are going to happen. First, you take a deep breath in. As you exhale, you drop your shoulders. You see, when you're tense and worried and upset, the shoulders have a tendency to come up around your ears, and the breathing goes really shallow in your chest like that. And when you drop your shoulders and drop the breath down into your belly, it instantly sends a signal to your body that there is no imminent threat. Your immediate 6 feet sphere right here, you're okay. And when you get that there is an important message that is sent to your neurophysiology. The second step, as I mentioned earlier, is to simply relax your forehead, the muscles around your eyes, your cheeks, your jaw, and get a slight hint of a smile at the corners of your eyes and the corners of your mouth. And when you do this, it creates the experience of calm within you. And you know times in which you've been calm. Right? And so if you do this with your eyes closed, it's a little bit easier to do, but just a feeling of calm. And the final step is to notice the touch of the breath in your nostrils. Because when you feel the breath in your nostrils and you attend to that, your mind isn't going to be other times and other places. You do come into the right now moment. Now, with that breath, I invite you to have it flow in a continuous cycle. So there's no pauses, there's no hesitations. It's just one breath flowing into the next, flowing into the next in a smooth way that's a little bit deep, but also even so that the exhale and inhale are of a similar duration. And when you do that, that balancing of these polarities of the exhale and the inhale, you're actually creating a balance which affects the whole body, the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, the left and right hemispheres of the brain, the body mind. You see, the breath is the invisible link between the two. And when you calm the breath in this way, you calm all these connections. And so you're now up-regulated. So it's very helpful at this point to see, okay, so what is one small step I can take now in the direction of where I'm headed? And that's going to be super helpful to practice. Now, it would be great if you could do this throughout the day. Whatever the mind does repeatedly becomes the mind's habit. So I've created a 5-day challenge to help give you that as a habit. And it's free on the website for Scheele Learning. It's called the 5-Day Laser Focus Challenge. And each morning for 5 days, I'll give you a short video that will kind of expand on that basic process. So I'll give you some tapping to do. I'll give you some visualizations to do and a little meditation. So it really will put you in that calm, safe, connected, capable state of mind, and it will become your mind's habit as you practice it throughout the next 5 days. Very helpful, again, free. So sign on and see it. It's right on just below the opening page. You'll see it. 5-Day Laser Focus Challenge. It's for overcoming overwhelm.
Okay, well, you're completely on your own now. There's no more host on this podcast because I'm just following along and doing exactly what you've been asking us to do. And I've settled into this like peaceful, calm, fully present state. And I have no idea what we were even talking about before. So you've completely lost the host of the podcast.
Isn't that
Now,
sweet? I mean, to get lost in the moment is so delicious.
no, it's I love it. And again, the simplicity of it,
Yeah.
what you just described is something that any of us could do in just a couple of minutes at any point in our day where, we're checking in with the news just so we know what's going on. And almost everyone who's joined on this podcast has said, turn off the news, don't get sucked into the news. And I believe it is good to, take a glimpse, pay attention, get the highlights, know where we're at, but then turn it off, right?
Yeah.
But if the news or someone you're talking to or whatever kind of draws you in that direction of the panic and the scarcity and the fear, it is wonderful to just be able to, bring your attention back to your breath.
Well, it's a great point. I mean, I signed up for the New York Times, and they have, a coronavirus update. So they'll update it in the morning and they'll update it at night, and it's free. So you don't have to worry. All their information is free. So I'm doing a one source info, and my wife went to look at the Weather Channel, on her phone, and oh my gosh, she got this horrendous news about the virus. Oh, she was so unglued after that. It really took her a while to kind of come back to normal. But yeah, it doesn't help to be stressing yourself, because stress has a tendency to narrow your attention, your perception, your thinking, your decision making, and your responding. It all narrows. We go into what's called tunnel vision. And so it's expanding. It's the ability to be present and expanding. Only then, in the military, they talk about the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act, right? You have to just pay attention, situational awareness, but be in a state where you can now keep calm and carry on.
Yeah. Well, and I'll circle back to, and I am watching the clock. I'm realizing we're going to have to wrap up, but I will circle back to something that was in your bio about the other 90% of our brain, that we have so much capacity to do more than we're aware of. And, you've done so much work in that area. And I think what you shared today is a really good reminder that we're all capable of this. Someone might be looking at you and saying, oh, well, Paul Scheele can do that. He's met with the Himalayan masters or whatever. But the truth is, and again, this is what I love about what you have created and work with Paul to create. We can all do this. We're all capable of so much more. And we can all use that process to calm down, open ourselves up, take small steps. It's something we can all do. We might not do it without help, but we can all do it.
Well, and the real point that you're making is that when we do upregulate, what we do is we access a level of intelligence that can really help us. And it's that prefrontal cortex, what's called the God spot. It's spiritual intelligence. It's this unitive intelligence that can see the big picture and guide us to where we need to go. It really is a fabulous resource that we all have, and way more powerful than our conscious mind is for sorting out what needs to be done next. So take a couple of simple steps, connect in with that, as I refer to, the genius within you, and you'll be able to really get yourself to where you want to go. And that's the title of a book of mine that's also on the website. It's called Drop Into Genius. It's an ebook you can get.
Awesome. So that answers that part of my question I was going to ask you next. So I think we've clearly kind of piqued people's curiosity about you and your work. If people do want to know more, if they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
It's ScheeleLearning.com. So it's SCHEELE, ScheeleLearning.com. And all the free resources are right there, and would love to be able to share them with you as a listener to this. And awesome. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for
thank you. And again, for people driving, don't write that down. It's going to be in the description of the podcast. It'll be there for you. And thank you so much. When I first, was felt kind of called to do this, and I hear you wanting to help and putting these resources up on the website and making yourself available to help at this time in whatever ways you can. This is the sixth, I think, sixth or seventh one of these interviews we've done so far, and everyone is saying the same things. The people who have been blessed and who have learned and have knowledge and wisdom and ideas to share, just want to share them now. So I'm thrilled that you were willing to join us and share with my community. If there's anything I can be doing to support you, please let me know. And again, just deeply, deeply grateful. And for those of you who are listening, thank you again for joining us for this episode of the Excellent Decisions podcast. Paul Scheele, our guest today, is a perfect example of someone who has joined me with the intention of helping you make more excellent decisions, getting in a space to make those excellent decisions from our vision, our values, and our value, rather than all the stress and pressure which has been ramped up in our world these days. So thank you for joining us, and we will look forward to having you with us for the next episode of the Excellent Decisions podcast. Thanks again, Paul.
You're welcome.